Help if I unmuted my microphone. Hello, everyone. I hope everyone's doing all right this evening. It's been a long day of watching things and waiting, and I have had a couple media interviews today, so been staying busy. Um, okay, one thing to address real quick before we get started. I was really kind of hoping and expecting that I would have had a chance to read the executive orders in regards to trans and queer people by now. They're still yet to be signed and released. Uh, Trump is actively, as we speak, signing a lot of executive orders. I don't think he's gotten to any trans ones specifically or queer ones specifically yet, other than the executive order reversing the positive LGBTQ executive orders that that Biden put into place when he got into office. So we are going to be working off of just what has been said by the news, which is not ideal, but that's the way it's going to go. And then if before the stream is done, we get the text, then I'm going to be looking at that live here on the stream. And yeah, that'll be interesting. We can sit and dig through it together then, I guess. Um, awesome. Okay, so first of all, let's take a few minutes to and I'll also be distracted because I am watching like not eight screens, but I have a lot of different browsers and tabs open that I'll be looking through, getting updates as we go along here. Um, let's take a minute to talk about executive orders for a minute and what they can and can't do. So an executive order isn't going to be able to simply just be enforced immediately. It requires generally policy to be written or organizations to or departments to enforce and put those things into place. So anything we see doesn't like automatically magically like go into effect, right? I mean, it goes into effect, but it can't be enforced very easily. So that's something that's really good that's going for us here. Um, and so that makes me feel a little bit better that we will have a little bit of of an ability to push back in a way that we can't once a bill becomes law, right? So there's still more steps along the way that we can do action around, etc. Um, and then another thing that we're looking at is that, or another thing that's going for us here is that we can, hold on, I had to take my watch off because it kept buzzing. Um, it's easier to roll back administrative action or executive orders. So in this, in the chance that there's a free and fair election in 2028 and the Democrats win or someone who is more friendly to LGBTQ people wins, those things could be rolled back way easier and just as quickly as Trump is putting them into place. Um, so that's like a little bit of the bright side here. Um, I would much rather executive action over bills and legislation any day. Legislation will take 10 years, 5 years, 10 years to, be reverted. Where, I mean, it could take less than that, but typically it's a much longer period of time. And same thing with court cases. So, like, that's a positive. Um, Void Critter, I think we're all a little bit afraid. There's a lot of unknowns right now, which makes it difficult. Um, and so, like, we can talk through too if anybody has like specific questions or scenarios around the executive orders. Um, Again, we don't know exactly what they do yet. And there's a good chance we don't know for days. We're gonna have to analyze it further, and attorneys are gonna have to weigh in. Um, and some of the stuff is just gonna have to be battled out on courts, unfortunately. Um, But if anybody has any very specific questions or scenarios that they're nervous about or afraid about, we can chat about them and talk about the realisticness of them. And yeah, Roy Critter mentions SCOTUS might create precedent that makes it harder for a better administration to roll it back. Yes, they could. But we're already in a situation where we have Scrimetti and SCOTUS, and so hopefully that, I mean, it's still not going to go great, but I think we have a better chance here still. Again, better than law. Getting Congress to revert a bad law is going to take way more effort um, than the executive action. Let's see here. What was I saying before going down this trail? Yeah, it's 8 p.m. My ADHD meds have definitely worn off by now. Yeah, Elsie, that's a great question. Elsie asked us if there's a way to live track the orders being signed, and right now, the how I'm tracking it is I am in a group chat with people watching live TV with it happening, and other places. If you look on one of them has made it up. It takes about 15 or 20 minutes after it gets signed, but typically the text goes up on the White House's news page on whitehouse.gov/news. So I've been basically going there and refreshing. And the commutations and pardons for January 6th people was signed like, let's see here. Yeah, it was signed 15 or 20 minutes ago, and it just hit their website in the past 5 or 10 minutes. So yeah, it takes anywhere between like 5 and 20 minutes for it to hit on there. And then you get to see the text and everything. I also NBC has been pretty good about keeping up on things. I have also been following several people on Twitter as well, to like reporters who are on the White House correspondence list. Hockey asked a good question. I'm worried about the HRT federal funding bans, but I know there's protections in the ACA. I'm not sure about the actual protections about with the ACA in regards to the HRT. As far as federal funding bans, it's very much a possibility. I'm not, again, we haven't seen the text, and how we've heard bits and things about federal funding possibly being in some of these executive orders, and that's like one of those things that's kind of unclear right now. Erica asked, how long do you think we will have to get the correct gender on our passports? This is going to be a really complicated answer. If you already have a passport and you have not had your legal gender changed, I would say it's probably not possible at this point. If you have a passport at this point and you have a legal gender change, it gets more unclear. Again, we're going to have a better idea once the executive order's out and once the departments and the State Department has had time to change a rule or clarify what their guidelines are going to be. We will have a better idea there realistically. If you already have a passport with a gender marker change, the question also then becomes, can your passport be rescinded? And we don't know that yet. We don't think so. We think that's going to be a much more difficult thing to accomplish, but you never know. And again, that's like one of those things that we're having to wait and see and wait till we read the text and figure out what the different departments are going to do. Yeah. So, in terms of legal challenges to executive orders, what's the usual process timeline for that, and which courts will it go through? I am not a lawyer, but as far as my brain can think, should go through a federal court. And how long is the legal challenges? There's already legal challenges being filed to a lot of things. We've seen 3 or 4 suits I saw earlier has been filed against Doge or the Department of Government Efficiency. There's also with the the Trump administration reverting one of their immigration apps to help create appointments and stuff like that for people coming to the country. That app went dark today. And I saw earlier ACLU already filed a suit against it. So they're working really fast. The good thing is I've gotten to speak with several attorneys from several different organizations, and this is all stuff they've been preparing for. So I think we're going to see legal challenges relatively quickly, actually, for a lot of it, for the things that they can file a suit for. Sometimes it may be one of those things that they have to wait for someone to attempt to enforce it in order for them to file suit. But right now there are like ACLU's already filed a suit today, and several other organizations have. So they're working really fast, which is really great. Um, if an HRT federal funding ban goes through, does that essentially outlaw HRT? The answer is it depends. And I know that's a really lawyer answer, and I'm not even a lawyer, but it does come down to it depends. Wording could be really important here, and it also becomes yeah, it would definitely make it harder to access, but even further it there'll be restrictions on it, right? So if in the instance we're normally talking about a bill, in this case it's a executive action, so I'm not really certain how much control that legally has, and that's probably something we could see legal challenges for, right? But what they could attempt to do would be banning federal funds for being used for HRT or gender affirming care. But the wording there actually really matters. If they say directly funds, then that means stuff like Medicaid, Medicare won't cover it anymore. The government wouldn't cover it for prisoners, etc. Now, if they say directly or indirectly, that's when things start getting a lot more scary. Because by adding that indirectly in, or by saying any, or they could do something like any system, any hospital, any system, any doctor who accepts federal funding, which would include Medicaid and Medicare, saying that they could not offer gender affirming care. That's something they could do. If that's the case, that is kind of a worst case scenario in a lot of ways, because what happens then is all hospital services, and most doctors' offices are going to want and going to need to operate to have those federal funding, specifically Medicaid and Medicare, right? They need the money from the Medicaid and Medicare system to operate. And so if you say you either take that or you drop gender affirming care, they're going to drop gender affirming care. And then another concern here with HRT access and surgeries and stuff like that is that if the scenario that if they threaten hospital systems in some ways with investigations, et cetera, which is possible specifically through the FTC, the Federal Trade Commission, is one possible avenue of them taking for that, which would, in a sense, could invoke investigations into them. And hospitals are very risk averse, as in they don't like taking any risks whatsoever. No risks. They don't like risks. And so they're more likely to drop gender affirming care to avoid the risk of charges or fines or anything like that. Again, these are like the scenarios that like are possible, but again, none of these things have happened yet. So it's really difficult to say for certainty whether these things are actually things that are going to come to pass. but these are kind of the scenarios that are running through my mind at the moment to kind of answer some of these questions. Um, yeah, like a federal funding ban, yeah, wouldn't necessarily limit your ability to access DIY HRT, or it might not. If you go to a doctor who doesn't take insurance, they'll probably they could prescribe it for you, right? So there's the good news is there's a lot of ways around these kind of things, and that's what makes, especially taking the executive route, makes me a little more relieved. Is that there's going to be a lot more holes and ways to get around things. Sometimes you have to be creative, but you a lot of times can get around them. The problem, of course, then becomes the people who can continue access are going to be rich white trans people and people of color and who are not well off might have more issues accessing HRT, which just kind of adds a additional like dis what's the word I'm looking for? Not discrepancy, disparagement. I don't think that's the word either. But a difference between different groups of trans people, which isn't good. Um, okay, here I'm gonna check a few things real quick. Apparently, an executive order has been signed regarding TikTok. So that's interesting. Okay, it looks like Biden. Oh my God, this is gonna take me a minute. Looks like Trump is slowly signing orders and answering questions from um uh press. We do have an executive order on TikTok. I'm not going to read through this right now, but I will be reading through it in my free time later because that is fascinating to me. Yes. So, Executive Order 14004. I am not super familiar with Biden's executive orders. I am Googling those, right? Okay, yes. So 14004 is basically um, repeals the ability or repeals the allowance of trans people in the military. That is one thing that hasn't been addressed yet, but I'm kind of expecting to see tonight or in the next day or two as seeing an executive order issued for repealing, or not repealing, but banning trans people from the military once again. Let's see here. Okay, I need a sip of water real quick. That was a lot of walking or talking. Will this be watchable later? Yeah. Yes, Sarah, I totally understand. My polycule does not like hearing about this as much as I like talking about it either. So, yes, this should be recorded and I'll post it later. I'm also really considering, I'm recently lost my job. So, I have a little extra time on my hands. And I'm considering doing like a weekly, uh, like, uh, show on YouTube, not necessarily live, but a weekly show just about what's going on in the trans world. Um, so yeah, if you're interested in something like that, definitely hit the subscribe button. Like that's how this is supposed to work as like a YouTuber, right? You're supposed to like beg people to subscribe to you and then whatnot. Pretty sure that's what I've known in the past, anyways. Water tastes good. Okay. Um, so other things that the executive action could possibly do is banning trans people from bathrooms. That's one thing I haven't touched on yet. This is one that we're getting. Thanks, Sarah. You have a good night. Um, So one thing that we're looking at is potentially that this executive order could include a federal bathroom ban, and what is that going to look like? And again, there's multiple scenarios. Oh, fascinating. Thank you, Too Far Gone. TikTok executive order is putting a 75-day pause in the ban enforcement. So we have TikTok for at least 75 more days. I could go on a whole rant about my fears around TikTok and Trump, but that's not what we're talking about right now. So bathroom bans. So there is a possibility, and again, we're getting conflicting reporting on different news sites about this, and this is why I really want to be able to see the text myself. And I really want to because the wording very much matters here in the grand scheme of things. So it could simply ban trans people from the bathrooms on federal property, right? That's not good, and there is an absurd amount of federal property. But another thing I saw mentioned somewhere, and I don't recall where, or maybe it was a discussion I was having with someone, that it was sounding like it was an bathroom ban on anywhere that receives government funding, which greatly changes the scope we're talking about. And so that's something that I'm like really anxious to see, is specifically around the bathroom bans type of thing. Because does that, if it's tied to federal funding, we've got a bathroom ban in every public school and every government building and everything like that. So yeah, there's Void Critter. There is multiple news organizations that are reporting the bathrooms thing. It's just conflicting reporting on the scope of it. So I between this and other information that I've received, that it's I believe there will be a federal bathroom ban of some sort. Unclear what it is fully going to be now, like I was saying. Is there anything in the ADA, perhaps? I mean, it does, but it doesn't address gender necessarily, right? Um, there has to be reasonable accommodations. However, I don't think that courts typically have or have ever. I don't know if that question has ever been fully asked to a court, but whether gender identity would fall under that. If we're taking the Bostick ruling, then sure, it probably would, but that's becoming more and more attacked at this point. So I don't think the ADA is going to help in this situation specifically. Is it worth a shot? Sure. But I don't think that's going to protect. And what we're seeing right now with actual bills in states regarding this, they have an exception in it that says this basically doesn't trump ADA. Like ADA is still there, but it does explicitly ban trans people from the bathroom. So yeah. There's a lot of property though that could be affected by a bathroom ban, but again, we have to wait and see once things are signed. I'm just checking my different feeds of information here. Again, nothing about this executive order yet. This could be much later tonight at this point that could be coming out. So we will have to wait and see still on that. Yeah, bathroom bans is going to be one of those things that we're just going to have to wait and see on. And again, I will probably come out with a video, since I'm not getting to answer a lot of the questions I was hoping to be able to answer tonight. I might just do a video in the next day or two, or another live stream. We'll see. Most likely a video though, so people can watch it asynchronously, and I don't have to set on a live stream at 8 p.m. I was also on a live stream for 3 hours earlier today. So today's been busy. Um, okay, let's see here. Another possibility is that the sex designation, whatever this executive order is going to be called, could affect his sports. Not exactly sure. That could be reading into it. That could be a way that the Department of Education could interpret the executive order and then implement a policy via that requires schools to do things. But again, that's kind of the blessing and the curse of executive orders, is that it requires so many things. So as long it's incredibly important to remember to not comply in advance. Just because an executive order comes out and says something, that doesn't mean you have to immediately start complying, nor does that mean that it'll be immediately enforced. And a lot of times, some of this stuff is not going to be easily enforceable. Um, Banning trans people from bathrooms is just difficult to enforce in general. Because what are you going to do? Put a cop outside every bathroom and check IDs? But what about people who have changed IDs? Are you going to do general inspections then? Again, it becomes way more complicated at that point. So who's to say, right? Unfortunately, what a lot of that comes down to is then it's selectively enforced, and people who do not pass as well as others, people who just get unlucky, are the ones who will be prosecuted, and not necessarily all trans people. So it kind of has this this selective enforcement that makes it hard to know for sure what the effects are going to be, and to say that, oh, this will be the effect you'll experience, might not be the same effect someone else experiences. Trump is still very slowly signing executive orders. This might be a little while before we have this. I have no idea how long I plan on sitting on here and talking. Again, I was hoping I'd have a lot more things to talk about by now, and that we'd actually have text to go through and I could analyze text. But unfortunately, that's not possible right now because we don't have the text. So we've been on here for about 30 minutes. Does anybody have more questions? Please feel free to put them in the chat. You could ask me a question that's not to do with the executive orders, or you could have a question about a weird scenario you might find yourself in, or you could ask me like a random question about myself. I could answer that. Or if you have like specific legislation you're concerned about or anything like that, I would be happy to jump on and like dig through some bills and show you, walk through some bills if you have questions about that kind of thing. I'm happy to do that as well. That is what I specialize in, is doing a lot of legislation analysis, reading, categorizing, tracking. I'm also a software engineer. Thanks, Noodle. I'm also a software engineer, so like if you see like the legislation tracking sheet that Aaron and others use, including myself, I wrote the code behind that to automate that, which is kind of fun. I have 42 people watching now all of a sudden. Oh my goodness. Hello, everyone. Welcome. I just went through a bunch of things, but I'm happy to talk, repeat anything that, if anybody has any questions as well. I was just saying that I have walked through the executive orders that we know about so far, or that I have ideas on, walked through some potential scenarios. And right now we're just kind of, oh, that's fine. That's fine. There's an executive order now that withdraws the United States from the World Health Organization. That's fine. I'm sure that's not going to have lasting effects on Americans whatsoever. Yeah, Quinn the Vixen. Yeah, no, exactly. It's wild, right? Um, okay, some great questions are coming in. Okay, Drifter, how do you see the various anti-trans bullshit interacting with Obergefell potentially being overturned? That's a great question. Wow, how did I go from 45 people watching to 27 people? That's wild. Okay, anyways, or this is just really weird numbers. Okay, anyways, great question. Um I think it's going to be a little bit more challenging to overturn Obergefell. Um I see them chipping away at it to undermine it as a possibility. Um and that's a really good question. I think that Obergefell is it's gonna be by little things. States. This is kind of the way I think it's possibly gonna go. We've seen some legislations. Ooh, a few just came out rapid fire. I love that. Um, Okay, back to Obergefell. I think one possible way that we could see this is being attacked is we've seen some legislation that basically invents a new form of marriage. So now that there's basically a straight form of marriage and a not straight form of marriage, and only straight people can apply for straight people marriage. It's not called straight people marriage. It's called some other word. I don't recall what it is. Um, and I could definitely see that being used to challenge it, or somebody challenging the law and then it being overturned via that challenge. Um, it's a great question. I don't feel like I can give you like the best answer, but that's one of the pathways that I can see at the moment. How safe would it be to do my name change on my passport? I already have my gender marker changed, but it's still my dead name. That's a fantastic question that I feel like I can't. I feel like I can't fully answer. Marriage. That's the word I was looking for. Thank you, Void Critter. I didn't know if you states already had those. This is really interesting. I'll have to look into that later. But okay, back to the passport name change thing. That's a great question. I feel uncomfortable fully answering that without knowing what this executive order is going to do. If I were you, there's two possibilities here, and it's either apply for it right now or not apply for it right now. And I can see pros and cons to both. Pros is if you do it like tomorrow, you could get it into where it confuses people and hopefully no one would notice. Um, Again, and also depends on where you are in Pennsylvania. Is some people Philadelphia is probably not going to care. A lot of people here. But if you or in the boonies and you go to apply with someone, they could give you a harder time. That's something that we could see. But I would say it's probably fine to do at any time, but I would wait to kind of feel it out. If I were you, I would probably wait a few days to feel it out and see exactly what's going to happen. Yeah, Philly. Okay, great. Yeah, Philly, I mean, I guess people in Philly are just going to kind of look the other way in a lot of situations. You might get unlucky, but you could go back a couple times maybe. Um, I think the name change shouldn't really raise a red flag because, again, it's not changing your gender. Anybody can change their name. So I can't imagine that would be a huge issue. Okay, scenario from James. I have friends with X gender markers. They're traveling a bit. We're near Canada. What's the likelihood they could get stuck outside the US and unable to get back as the changes are implemented? This is a difficult scenario because I have heard a little bit of conflicting things from the attorneys I have spoken to who I trust. this isn't a huge concern. However, NBC did bring this up and said one of their legal experts, or some legal expert, quote, legal expert, don't know who it was, said that is definitely a possibility. What I would say is I would contact an attorney prior to trying to re-enter the United States. I would even consider calling the ACLU. Just so that you have people aware, so that you have lawyers who can come help you if there is issues. That would be my best advice in that scenario. Again, I don't think it will have an issue, but you never know. And this could simply fall down to who the border agent you talk to is. If you get a cool border agent, they might not give a shit. If they hate trans people, they might detain you and question you. You never know in those scenarios. So I think it would be a highly stressful scenario to go through. But I think I would definitely consult an attorney or even the ACLU so that you have an attorney to call if you run into issues. Okay. Oh my god, okay. We're getting more and more executive orders coming in here. Let's see here. So there's an executive order deploying U.S. military to the borders. It looks, that's just a quick read, or a quick scroll through there. What? Okay, let's look through here. Okay, so the executive order ending birthright citizenship has been posted as well. Subsection A. It is the policy of the United States that no department or agency of the United States government shall issue documents recognizing United States citizenship, documents issued by blah, 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 to when the person's mother was unlawfully present in the United States and the person's father was not a United States citizen or lawful permanent resident at the time of the said person's birth, or when that mother's presence in the United States was lawful but temporary and the person's father was not a United States citizen or lawful permanent resident at the time of the person's birth. So yeah, it just straight up ends birthright citizenship. Interesting. Okay, that's one to keep an eye on as well. Okay, let's get back over here to the chat. One to make it easier to fire civil servants. Again, not surprising. That is Project 2025 through and through. It's kind of unfortunate seeing the number of people who are shocked as civil servants are starting to get fired even already and being like, we didn't expect that to happen. It literally was written plain text in Project 2025. I don't know where you've been. Okay, I want to check and see what other things could have. Okay, there we go. Trump has signed an executive order now on gender identity. It has been signed. So we are going to be waiting on the text for that. President Trump, I'll just read what this is from NBC News. Trump signed an executive order tonight that the White House official described as protecting women from radical gender ideology. The details of the order were not immediately clear. Trump has frequently referred to transgender women as men and has vowed to bar transgender women from participating in women's sports. So let's yeah, these executive orders are starting to kind of pour in here. So I'm going to come over here and I'm going to share my screen. So give me just a moment to get that going. Well, Void, you're here with us, and we're all in this right now together. That's what we're here for. We're all here together. It doesn't matter what this executive order says. It's going to take a while for it to go into effect fully. Um, and it doesn't mean we just disappear, despite them trying. We don't just immediately disappear. Can I do? Don't want local file. Hold on. I don't want to screen capture. Okay. But okay, there we go. Now we can do window capture. We can go over here to sharing this. Or yeah. Yeah, we'll do that. Okay. Hold on, y'all. I'm editing my OBS templates in real time here. On a small little Mac screen. I'm running dual monitors, but one is for all of my other things. Honestly, Void, I hate that you had to opt to keep it as an F. You shouldn't have to do that. However, in this scenario, that might work in your favor at the moment. Okay, we're going to transition over to here. Haha, no pun intended. Let's go out of studio mode so I can fine tune my adjustment here. Oh my god. Okay. Struggle bussing with OBS today. Okay. There we go. We got this. We got this here. Let's see here. We're gonna start kind of going through some of this. Thank you, Sid. I appreciate you being here and chatting with me as well. Let's look through here. What is okay? So this is like allowing the death penalty. I don't believe in the death penalty, but you know. Okay, that's promoting. Oh my God, this is nonstop. Okay, restoring accountability for career senior executives. What? Like, I swear, like, there's some people who are just, like, super passionate about something random, and it's just like, yeah, let's just sneak this executive order here in the stack. I'm sure he'll just sign it. You know, who knows? Oh my goodness, this just keeps moving. Okay, so no more windmills. Okay, so what is the stupid architecture one? Like, that's what I'm going on about. What are they even talking about? Reevaluating and realigning United States foreign aid. Okay. Cool. Oh my god, my voice is gonna go. My favorite so far is people over fish. Joe, where is that? I must read this now. I'm. Where does it? Oh my god. Okay. People over fish? Oh, there's a new one. Of course there is. Nope, that one doesn't sound like it's gonna affect trans people either. I got this smart water like last time I traveled. So it was like 2 weeks ago. Never drank it. Left in my backpack. So it was up here. It's a perfect thing. It's fantastic for right now. Wait, hold on. Ned, let me just read what Ned just said. The architecture one is just a thing that traditional trad people are obsessed with. In the late 1990s, early 2000s, a lot of federal buildings got built with very contemporary design, and conservatives hated it. What? Why does that matter to you? Why? I don't understand. Why do you? Why? I don't get it. Okay, I'm gonna go back to just me here while I check my other tabs. It came in before the death penalty one. Okay, I'm gonna look at that in a second. I'll look at that in a second. I want to check. Also, just if you all missed it, that basically 1,600 rioters that were charged with storming the U.S. Capitol have been had commuted sentences or been pardoned. And to give you an idea of um how unprecedented these executive orders are, I believe it was the what'd you miss, Susan? Nothing super related to um let me know if the stream goes wonky for you all, because I just got an alert that it was kind of having trouble keeping up there for a second. Um Nothing much related to trans people. We know that there's one been signed. Um but that's it at the moment. Yeah, so I think it's going to stutter here for a minute. It's having issues encoding, it looks like. So I might need to bump some settings. We will see. I'm going to give everything a minute to iron itself out. Okay. They just keep coming. But okay, what I was saying. How Okay, cool. So it looks like everyone's still fine. So we're just going to keep going and pretend like there's nothing wrong. Oh, did I go back to my screen share? Look at me. I went back to my screen share. How wonderful of me. Executive orders. Like the onslaught, I believe Biden did like 81 in his first 100 days, and it was the most executive orders in the first 100 days of any president since Harriet Truman. So, like, the level of doing 100 to 200 executive orders over the course of a day or two is absurd. Absolutely absurd. Okay, so let's go back down here to under the death penalty one, because we need to go see this one. Let's see here. I swear this is just I don't know which one it is. I was gonna read the whole fish one, the people before fish one, but I've lost it now, and there's too many other things going on. Okay, so we're gonna come over here to MDC real quick. You all are coming with me apparently. Okay, whatever, Nancy Pelosi. You can say your little comments. Okay, so hopefully here soon in the next 5 or 10 minutes we'll have an executive order that talks about trans issues. And we can sit and we can read it and cry all together. Shall probably not cry. I'm not specifically surprised by anything, and I've been mentally processing this stuff for like 2 months, a month and a half at this point. But I can sit down and we can talk about it together. And we can talk about how absurd it is. Joe, putting fish before people is why Dems lost so much. Yep, it's the damn fish. It's the damn fish's fault that the Dems lost. You heard it here first, folks. It's all the fish's faults. People just tuning into the stream would be like, I thought this was about executive orders and trans people. Establishing and implementing the President's Department of Government Efficiency. Oh, Lord. Okay. Oh, so he's basically. Oh, fascinating. So he's taking an existing service, United States Digital Service, renaming it to United States Doge Service, USDS. Fascinating. I guess that's one way to do it. Like, fascinating. Okay. I'm very interested to see what's going to come out of this over the next few days specifically. That's very interesting. Okay, here we go. Defending women from gender ideology. Let's see what this is. This is reading like a bathroom band to me. It's the policy of the United States to recognize two sexes, male and female. These sexes are not changeable and are grounded in blah, 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 blah. Y'all, I'm probably going to sit here and read this silently for a minute to kind of analyze it, and then we'll walk through it together. This is a long one. Yeah, I was just pointing out another chat of mine. This is very close to the Women's Bill of Rights, which is interesting. We can dig into that in a bit, too. This could Okay. Let's break this down for a minute. Sorry about the silence. I needed a moment to read it, and there's a lot of stuff in here that I wanted to think about before talking about it. So, what you all are about to receive is my first very raw opinions and thoughts. And admittingly, I'm going to have more questions about this than I'm going to have answers. I'm in some chats that are reviewing it. I can't always share what's being told to me in those chats directly or say who those are coming from. But there's a lot of people working on this. So that's the good news, is that right now you have legal teams and a lot of different people pouring over this. So I right now that is a very positive thing. There's a lot of people all over this. Let's go ahead and dig into this a little bit. This beginning part reminds me very much of the Women's Bills of Rights. I wrote an article for Slate about it last year. Um, yeah, Joe, you're right about that. So right here, these are your basic definitions, right? So these are all information. These are very partisan definitions. They're not as legally definitions as I've even seen in some very conservative laws, right? Is that a good thing? Yes, I think for us that's a good thing, right? Because that means there's a it's a little more vague, which I think will work out in our favor here. Hold on, I am trying to do like 3 things at once. So this stuff, it's just going to be little document changes. They're going to change a bunch of documents to say instead of gender, ask for your sex. And by that, they're going to want your sex assigned at birth. Do you have to give it to them? Probably not. I mean, I'm just going to give them the one that is on my birth certificate, which is female. So, Again, this is where those enforcements, how are they going to enforce it? It's going to be very difficult for them to do that. Right here, this is vague. And this is where we are going to have to wait until Secretaries of State, Homeland Security, and Director of Office of Personnel Management come with their guidance based upon this executive order on what they mean by this. By saying identification documents, including passports, visas, and global entry cards, shall accurately reflect the holder's sex. By their definition of sex, mine would not do this, but it is very much a valid document at this point in time. We're going to have to wait and see. This is going to be one of those situations where you wait and see. And this is why I've been saying don't comply in advance. This isn't seemingly implying that I can't use my passport in a way, but that doesn't mean that is the policy, the law, or anything at this moment in time. Would this affect Real ID? Unclear. It's a possibility, Alexandra. I am not positive. There's a possibility it could affect Real ID. It's not explicitly calling out Real ID, and this is something that they could clarify later on that it includes it. Unsure right now. This is all just removing it, and they go into this a little bit more detail down further. This is just saying that any policies or communications can't talk about gender ideology, which just means don't talk about transness ever. It's don't say gay, but for trans people, don't say trans. Bad, yes, not great, but do I need the federal? Do we need the federal government to have official communications saying that my gender ideology, um, yeah, no, I don't need them to say that for me to know what gender I am. Yeah, avoid it could definitely be a lot worse. Here is where, and this is where I am. No, it's section 5 where it gets even more. This is where we start getting into a little bit of the whenever you see a single sex spaces, think bathrooms, changing rooms, locker rooms, um, any gender divided spaces. Um, that's something to think about when you're going through here. Federal funds shall not be used to promote gender ideology. Okay. And grants should not promote gender ideology. Okay, I think we're going to have to just kind of see what happens, how that shakes out. For now, it has no immediate concerns. Here very much all about the men and women's prisons and detention centers. The president has now basically instructed them to ensure that they are divided based off sex at birth. Housing and Urban Development shall prepare and submit notice comment for rulemaker policy to rescind the final rule entitled. I don't know what this. Oh, this is having to do with single sex shelters. Yeah, section 5. We're gonna get to that. That's the part that I paused on too. Again, federal funds. So it basically bans gender affirming care for federal prisoners, and this you could probably interpret as any federal agency shall create a policy to ban trans people from bathrooms. That's how I interpret that, but that leaves a lot of room for other agencies to do things, right? Some of them could be like, yeah, trans people aren't allowed to use the bathroom, but again, what they don't know won't hurt them. So section 5 is where things start getting a little bit more concerned, I believe. This is when we go to single sex spaces and workplaces and federally funded entities. And so this is where I feel like I can't fully comment on it because this is a lot of legal questions I don't know the answers to. I have a lot of concerns around this one. Specifically, does that mean if a workplace and any federally funded entities doesn't ban trans people from bathrooms, they can be investigated by the Attorney General under Civil Rights Act? That's how I initially read that. Ned, again, fantastic question. Does federally funded entities potentially mean every public school in the country? I would say potentially, yeah, with potentially doing a lot of the heavy lifting in that statement. But I am not a lawyer. This is starting to get a little outside of my thing, outside of my, initial, yeah, for my initial thoughts. As being pointed out in one of my Signal chats, though, is that it's pretty weak overall. As in, basically, again, this is the president telling organizations to do things, and then they need to start policy making processes and stuff like that. All of that stuff takes a lot of time, and there's a lot of procedures around that typically. Um, Airports, just federal property. Again, all of these are great questions that we don't know the answers to yet. Um, so we're gonna have to wait and see, which isn't the answer necessarily everyone wants, but it is something that I think is a good thing in a way, as in this isn't something that immediately happens. We haven't immediately overnight lost a ton of things. It is starting things into motion that could potentially have pretty severe effects. But yeah, we've got a time frame here, and that means we've got a time frame to track and figure out what all these organizations or all of these departments are doing, and time to act based upon that. So we have some time. Yeah, and James, you're right. Grants. Some libraries use a small amount of federal money for internet access, and so it could be used as a lever to force poorer libraries to censor. It could. Yeah. I think this is where we're going to see, again, very selective enforcement. They might want to make an example out of someone and do that once or twice, but that doesn't automatically mean everyone is at risk. And so we kind of have this situation where, yes, and a lot of policies require public comment period, which all it takes is you having a computer to write up a comment, and then you overload their things. And then a lot of times they sit and review the comments, and sometimes they delay and delay and delay so they can review all the comments because trans people have blown up their comment pages. Like I said, there's a lot of ways we can work through this to have this maybe not always work out in our family, but slow things down. And the slower we can make things and the harder we can make it for them, the better, and the more wins we have based upon that, right? Um I know it looks like Erin Reed is also live posting her thoughts as she's reading through it. So I would definitely check out her Blue Sky as well and see her thoughts. Um, yeah, like it definitely doesn't make you feel good, but it also gives us a lot of wiggle room. And what I was saying too was that we it's going to be a lot of these things will be selectively enforced, which means that they're going to be enforced essentially they're going to attempt to enforce them based upon fear. Um, and if you're afraid of um, if you're afraid of enforcement and then you comply, you kind of give in a lot of ways. Whereas if everyone doesn't comply, yes, random people are probably going to be targeted and attacked, but it'll be more random and will happen not so often, and it'll just make it so it's an overall a failure. Um, Sorry, I this my other chat just blew up, so I was typing some things out and some of my thoughts in there. Um, yeah, opportunistically enforced for media attention, with the goal of scaring everyone into submission. And as long as we don't get scared to submission, we don't get scared to and give this up without a fight, it's going to make it really, really, really hard for them. And that applies for all of the executive orders. when you have 200 executive orders, they can't stop everybody, right? And you have all of these organizations being pulled in 115 different directions on 115 different issues. It's going to take them a long time to get a lot of this stuff in effect. So again, we have time here. This didn't just happen overnight. I want to go back here to this page to make sure that we're not missing things. Okay, so we have one on DEI here now as well. Terminate DEI programs. Okay, like we kind of knew that was going to happen. Yeah, that's nothing. Yeah, exactly, Void. It's just going to be difficult to do. It's a difficult sell to people. I think that's about all I have to say on this at the moment. Is I think I have a pretty good idea of where we stand. I will definitely, if um um yeah, a lot of bureaucracy chaos. Um, I think that's all I can really say on this executive order. Is that is what I've already said. I will love to follow up on this. Maybe if I do a video like I was talking about at the end of the week, it'd probably come out on like Friday. So like if you haven't subscribed, go ahead and click the button. We can follow up on this maybe, and I can pull in some other thoughts. But yeah, this is definitely not as bad as it could be. I think it's very broad, and I think they're trying to use that to their advantage. I think it might also work towards our advantage instead, though. Yeah, Void, I don't disagree. Like, I just don't disagree about the federal bathroom ban on pretty much every space ever. I don't fully disagree with that statement. I am going to need to wait till some attorneys weigh in on this more. I've gotten some information from one attorney on her first glance at this, but I also know there's multiple legal teams who are reviewing this with all the um, basically reviewing all of this as well from major organizations. Um, so it might be several days before you see some organizations coming out with specific guidance and specific things. It's because there's a lot here to look at. Yeah, I think this is y'all. I think we might end it here because at this point, I think I need to sit here and think. I need to talk with a bunch of other people, and I would highly recommend checking out Erin Reed on Blue Sky because I know she's doing her analysis right now of it. Make sure you follow me over there at ally.gay. Um, and yeah, if this is something you all would like to see another time, feel free to drop me a DM on Blue Sky or something, and we could do something similar again. Don't hesitate to reach out if you've got questions. I'm happy to chat. I might have to leave you on red for a little bit because I'm busy very busy with a lot of stuff at the moment. But um, yeah, I think this isn't the absolute worst case of anything. I think we're sitting in not good shape, but not as bad as it could be. So I think the main question I have right now is about the bathroom ban portion of it, and I think that's going to take a little bit of time, and it's going to require the attorney general to also weigh in a little bit on it. So thank you everyone for coming out. I really appreciate it. I did not expect to have quite as many people as we've had on, and this has been a lot of fun, and I'm glad we got to kind of share this time with each other. And yeah, thank you all so much. If you have any other like really quick final questions, feel free to drop them in the chat. I'll stick around for just another few minutes, and then I will wind the stream down. Thank you, Susan. I appreciate it. Okay, sorry. I was replying to an email. Thanks, David. Thank you so much.